Welcome, brothers and sisters, to the Real Talk Bible Study. May the Holy Spirit open up our minds and our understandings to understand His words during this lesson. So let's do it.
Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breasts.
So simply put, the Most High is saying here that who shall he teach knowledge and true understanding to? And it will be those that are weaned off of the religions and doctrines and all the stuff of this world.
For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little. For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people.
So, what the Most High is saying here is that to actually understand the Bible, yeah, you can read it through from Genesis all the way through to Revelation, including the Apocrypha books, because without that you haven't got the Greek kingdom, and bits in there is really important for you to actually understand the full times and kingdoms that would be on the earth, like the ones that Daniel said in his dream. So what he's saying here, you can read it through like that, fine, but then to actually understand the Bible, you must read it and let the Bible talk to you. Instead of, like, for example, then pastors and all these other religious people are standing up and they're preaching, and they're not really letting the Bible speak for itself. They're just talking what their words. The best thing to do is let the Bible tell you what the Most High is saying, what He's already written and what He's saying from the beginning to the end, without us putting our interpretations in on what we think the story of the Bible is and the interpretation of it is. Just follow it through as it's written. But to understand it, you have to use the precepts, the verses that's in the Bible, but you must use them in a way that they line up with each other. So if there's a particular subject matter, whatever that may be, you go in the Bible, you find all the precepts that pertain to that, and then once they're in a particular order, that's what the Most High is saying, because He doesn't contradict Himself, whether it be New Testament, Old Testament, even the Apocryphas. He doesn't contradict Himself. All the Bible is saying is the same thing, but in different ways. That's why He said precept upon precept, line upon line upon line. Here a little, for example, Daniel, bits in Revelation, bits in Deuteronomy, bits in Jeremiah, here a little and there a little. And when you put all the little precepts together, it will tell you what it is that you need to know. And here where it says, for with stammering lips and another tongue will He speak to this people. The people He's obviously talking about was the Israelites that was scattered amongst the nations, because they are in different countries that speak different languages. He's saying that from henceforth, He's going to have to speak to them in another tongue, another language, to speak to this people once they're there scattered amongst the Gentiles, wherever they were scattered to. He will not be speaking to them in Hebrew, because they would have lost their identity through various dispersions and slaveries and captivities and that sort of thing. So He will not be speaking to them in the ancient original Hebrew, and they will obviously not be speaking or understanding the same thing, the Hebrew. They'll be speaking different languages within the countries that they have been dispersed. Simple. Let's move on.
So, let's begin. Let the Bible speak.
So as I said before, we're going to get into this lesson and just let the Bible speak for itself. And we just learn, pay attention. May the Holy Spirit open our eyes and our understanding for us to understand this lesson, as in Yeshua's great and holy name. Hallelujah. Amen. Let's continue. And by the way, as we go through this lesson, if there's something that I feel that needs to be explained in a bit more detail, I'll do my best. If not, and as the lesson stated, the whole point of this is to let the Bible speak and explain itself, and hopefully we can get some knowledge and understanding from that. All right, so let's just move on.
Today's lesson. What color is God? Jesus. And His chosen people. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul.
I think this one's quite explanatory, don't you think? So let's move on.
And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them. And God said unto them, "Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth."
Okay, we all live in the modern world at the moment, and we can hear what it is that they're trying to promote. That people can go and do their own thing, and people can be what they want and do what they want and do as I will. You know, but according to the scriptures, according to what the Most High has stated, what reflects the perfect image of him is a man and a woman coming together. Not a man being with another man, a woman being with another woman. Men going off and talking about they're going to go off and do their own thing. And women out here talking about they don't need a man, they're going to go off and do their own thing. And the children out here just wild and nuts. And in some households actually ruling the house. I mean, you know. But according to this, stated here right in front of us clearly, the ideal image of God is a man and a woman coming together and being together. Let's move on.
And the sons of Ham, Cush, who are the Ethiopians, and Mizraim, the original Egyptian peoples, and Phut, the original Libyan peoples, and Canaan, the original North African peoples.
Okay, so if Noah and his wife got on the boat with their 3 sons and their wives, and these are the only people that were saved from the old world, and one of the sons was called Ham, who eventually inherited the land or landmass continent, what we call today Africa. Then what color was the rest of the family that got on the boat? You know, his other 2 brothers and his mum and Noah. I'll leave you to work that one out as we move on.
"Are ye not as children of the Ethiopians unto me, O children of Israel, saith the Lord? Have not I brought up Israel out of the land of Egypt, and the Philistines from Caphtor, and the Syrians from Kir?"
So we have here the children of Israel were living amongst the children of Ham, who we would call today Africans, the Ethiopians, and the original Egyptians. I think this is kind of starting to paint a picture already, but hey, let's move on.
And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, "Whence come ye?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." And Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew not him.
Okay, brothers and sisters, you see here in the book of Genesis, Joseph's 10 brothers, they come down to Egypt to buy corn because there was a famine, right? Now, when the brothers arrived in Egypt, Joseph recognized his brothers, but his brothers amongst the Egyptians, Hamites, who are on the continent of what we call Africa today, they didn't recognize their own brother amongst the Egyptians. Now, they all came from the same dad, Jacob, who is from Isaac, who is from Abraham, right? But they didn't recognize their own brother. You know why? Because the Israelites and the Egyptians look similar. In other words, they're all melanated people, what we would call today black people.
And unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, which Asenath the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bare unto him.
Okay, so if Joseph, who was like a pharaoh in Egypt back then, had two sons who were Manasseh and Ephraim, who went on to be other tribes of Israelites in the future. And he had these two sons with what we call today black, with an original Egyptian Hamite woman. Then what color were all these people? Let's just move on.
When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night, and departed into Egypt, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Out of Egypt have I called my son.
Okay, well, this one is at the time when Herod, remember, was looking for all the young children under a certain age to kill them. So the Most High sent a message to Joseph and Mary to basically go and hide in Egypt amongst the Egyptians until Herod dies. So here it's got, out of Egypt I have called my son, to fulfill a prophecy which was obviously written from before. So the question here is, if they went to hide amongst the Egyptians back then what color were Joseph and Mary and the baby that's inside them, which today the world calls Jesus? What color were these people?
Now the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away. But Moses stood up and helped them, and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel their father, he said, How is it that ye are come so soon today? And they said, An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock.
Okay, brothers and sisters, if Moses was helping the woman, and then later on her father asked, so how did you get here so quick? And she said an Egyptian, a Hamite, helped her. But when Moses is really an Israelite, right? So what color was Moses? Let's move on.
And the Lord said furthermore unto him, Put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put thine hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and, behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
So when the Most High was going to deliver the Israelites the first time round, and he appeared to Moses, and he was showing Moses, obviously, his signs and stuff like that. One of the signs was, he told Moses to put his hand into his bosom, into his jacket or whatever he had on, and take it back out. And Moses looked, and his hand was leprous. Leprosy is a loss of melanin. His skin became pale. What we call, white today, pale. And then he put his hand back in and took it back out. And it went back to his normal flesh, which was the opposite. Where it's got here, his hand was leprous as snow. It was the opposite. So what color was Moses and the rest of his body? You know what I mean? Let's keep going.
And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman.
Okay, by the way, if Moses was mistaken for an Egyptian, but he was an Israelite, and he had a brother and sister here, Miriam and Aaron. So all three of them are from brothers and sisters from the same family with the same mum and dad, right? Then what color was Miriam and Aaron? And ask yourself, if Moses was from the tribe of Levi, and Moses here married an Ethiopian woman, basically what we call a black woman today, then what color were Moses's children, who would also be Levites, right?
And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous.
I don't think this one needs any explanation. It explains itself.
And if a leprosy break out abroad in the skin, and the leprosy cover all the skin of him that hath the plague from his head even to his foot, wheresoever the priest looketh, then the priest shall consider. And behold, if the leprosy have covered all his flesh, he shall pronounce him clean that hath the plague. It is all turned white, he is clean. But when raw flesh appeareth in him, he shall be unclean. If a man or woman have a plague upon the head or the beard, then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in sight deeper than the skin, and there be in it a yellow thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a dry scall, even a leprosy upon the head or beard.
Okay, brothers and sisters, what should we have learned so far is that the Israelites could have only obviously been a melanated peoples living in and around the land of Egypt, which is in the continent of Ham, today known as Africa. And to have leprosy, for the melanin to leave your skin, and for your skin to turn pale, was not seen as a good thing amongst the Israelites. So let's move on.
And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance.
Right, so here's one. The word ruddy. Ruddy means a reddish brown. Here are some images of ruddy people. We sometimes hear people try to say these days that ruddy means red. No. Red means red. Ruddy means a reddish brown. And also, David was from the tribe of Judah, right? And remember, Judah himself was one of those 10 brothers that went into Egypt to buy corn, remember? So if David is from the tribe of Judah, then what color is David? Let's move on.
I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tents of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look not upon me, because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards. But mine own vineyard have I not kept.
Right. Although this one is very self-explanatory, I mean, the man repeats himself twice. Here's Solomon, who is also from the tribe of Judah, whose dad is David, who was ruddy, remember? So if Solomon is repeating himself, saying here that he's black, then what color, again, was David, his dad? who was also from the tribe of Judah, that went into the land of Egypt to buy corn.
My skin is black upon me, and my bones are burned with heat.
Okay, although this one is, quite self-explanatory, we don't really know, or I can't really say for sure, whether Job is an Israelite. However, we do know that the Most High has said he showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any other nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Lord. But what I'm saying is that some people will try to say that Job was an Edomite because he came from the land of Uz. And they'll try to put Uz in the land of Edom. However, I'm just going to read something to you quickly, and it's got here, the land of Uz is a location mentioned in the Old Testament, most prominently in the book of Job, which begins, there was a man in the land of Uz, so he lived in Uz, whose name was Job. Uz has often been identified as either Aram in modern day Syria or Edom in modern day Jordan. It says either, but you don't hear them mention much about the Syria part. They'll just say that, Uz was in Edom, so he was an Edomite. But in the Bible also, it will say, as soon as you start reading the book of Job, it says, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. Now, the next thing I'm about to read will clearly show you that he couldn't have been an Edomite. Number one, they're red and he says he's black. And number two, the Edomites, who are the Caucasian peoples and their descendants today, it's got here, and that man was perfect and upright and one that feared God and eschewed evil. Well, we obviously know that they're the people of the sword. It's got here that Job was perfect and upright and one that feared God. So obviously he kept the commandments. They haven't ever had a history of keeping the commandments. So he couldn't have been an Edomite, right? Okay, so we're just going to go through the next few scriptures just for the Bible to explain or describe the Israelites, some of their hair and skin complexion themselves. And then we're going to move on to the second part of what happened to the Israelites after that and where are they today. Okay?
And Delilah said unto Samson, Hitherto thou hast mocked me, and told me lies. Tell me wherewith thou mightest be bound. And he said unto her, If thou weavest the 7 locks of my head with the web. Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes within thy locks. Thy hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Mount Gilead. Thy teeth are like a flock of sheep that are even shorn, which came up from the washing, whereof every one bare twins, and none is barren among them. Thy lips are like a thread of scarlet, and thy speech is comely. Thy temples are like a piece of a pomegranate within thy locks. And thou shalt say to the rebellious, even to the house of Israel, Thus saith the Lord God, O ye house of Israel, let it suffice you of all your abominations. Neither shall they shave their heads, nor suffer their locks to grow long. They shall only poll their heads. And he put forth the form of an hand, and took me by a lock of mine head. And the Spirit lifted me up between the earth and the heaven, and brought me in the visions of God to Jerusalem, to the door of the inner gate that looketh toward the north. Where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provoketh to jealousy? And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, according to the vision that I saw in the plain. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee, and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee, and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field.
Okay, brothers and sisters, we're now going to look at the curse of Deuteronomy 28 and see what happened to the Israelites. Here, Moses is letting the children of Israel know that the Most High is saying if they follow his commandments and listen, they would be the head of all nations. But if they don't, they're going to be cursed and be the tail amongst all nations. So, did the Israelites listen? Let's see.
The word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah concerning the dearth. Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. Their visage is blacker than a coal. They are not known in the streets. Their skin cleaveth to their bones. It is withered. It is become like a stick. Our fathers have sinned, and are not, and we have borne their iniquities. Servants have ruled over us. There is none that doth deliver us out of their hand. We gat our bread with the peril of our lives, because of the sword of the wilderness. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did. They departed not from them, until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day.
Okay, going by the scriptures we've seen so far, it looks like Israel didn't listen and they were taken away captive out of their own land, slaves. When he's got here Israel, by the way, there's 12 tribes. So in this instance, he means Israel, referring to the 10 tribes, also known sometimes as Ephraim.
Those are the 10 tribes, which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, and go forth into a further country, where never mankind dwelt. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsareth. Then dwelt they there until the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come, they shall stay the springs of the stream again, that they may go through. Therefore sawest thou the multitude with peace.
Why did you wish to sail west?
To open a new route to Asia. Asia is the richest kingdom, the land of spices and gold. At the moment, there are only two ways of reaching it. By sea, sailing around the African continent. The journey takes a year. Or by land. But the Turks have closed this route to all Christians. There is a third way. By sailing west across the ocean sea.
The distance is unknown. It's said to be infinite.
Superstition. I believe the Indies are no more than 750 leagues west of the Canary Islands.
How can you be so certain?
The calculations of Toscanelli, Marin de Tir, Esdras.
Esdras is a Jew.
So what's worse?
2 minutes, and already you're a dead man.
For telling the truth?
Yes. We are burning people for less. The men you're about to confront have no emotion.
According to the Book of Mormon, after his resurrection, Jesus came to the Americas to preach to the Indians, who the Mormons believe are really Israelites. Thus, the Jesus of Mormonism established his church in the Americas as he had in Palestine. By the year 421 AD, the dark-skinned Indian Israelites, known as Lamanites, had destroyed all of the white Nephites in a number of great battles.
Let me show you one more connection. In 1860, David Wyrick, he's a guy who surveyed the Newark earthworks. He was digging into a mound near those earthworks, and he found a wooden coffin made of oak. They opened up the coffin and found a skeleton of a man holding a little box that was about 8.10 inches in size. The box had been cemented shut here. This, by the way, is sitting in Ohio. Well, he opened up the box and he found a little man inside, a little black stone. They took it to scholars and they looked at it. The man seems to be carrying something, and there's writing here at first they couldn't recognize. The writing is, they thought in 1860, some sort of Hebrew. Well, finally, about 20 years later, they found some rabbis living in the area, and the rabbis looked at that, and they could read it. They said it was an old kind of block Hebrew, and it was a rendition of the Ten Commandments. Now, this is another piece. Block Hebrew, they said they'd never seen anything like it. Mainstream archaeologists at the time called this a hoax. But then in 1900, or just about after 1900, in Israel, they found the same block-style Hebrew writing. Mainstream archaeologists still dismissed the findings. They found it in Israel, and they found it in Ohio. But there was another stone that they found that they couldn't argue. This is the Bat Creek stone. It was found during the course of an official Smithsonian evacuation. The Smithsonian didn't understand the meaning of the writing on the stone. They thought it was Cherokee, since it came from Cherokee country. They didn't realize that it's actually Hebrew. They had published this originally upside down. They threw it in a box at the bottom of the Smithsonian, put it in the basement. Many years later, a scholar took it out of the box, looked at it, and went, oh my gosh, it's upside down. It's Phoenician, ancient Hebrew. So what's going on here? What is that about? Where is that history? I'll show you in a few minutes, and we're going to have a conversation, and I'm going to show you some more things that the Smithsonian, science, government, commerce colluded to erase. By the way, I want to thank the directors of the documentary Lost Civilizations of North America for bringing these stories to my attention. I was blown away. To find more, visit the website lostcivilizationdvd.com. Here's the thing we should be asking ourselves. I don't know the story of these. Do you know that? Did you know that? Do you live in Ohio and did you know that? Why not? Were the American Indians wronged? Yes. Yes. And that's what we focus on in America, is we were bad to the American. Forget about it. It's in the past. The question should be the ones that the founders asked. Who are they? What knowledge do they have? Can you imagine the difference we would have now if we would put our differences aside and put our past in the past and concentrate on today and say, let's learn from each other. What do you have? What is that? What is that? When we come back, I'm going to be joined by Peter Lilback, who is, I've told you before, is one of my favorite authors. He's going to talk to me a little bit about the founders here. And I'm also going to show you some documents that show how that history has been erased.
So according to what we've just seen, the 10 tribes, the bulk of them, I'm not saying all of them, but the bulk of them look like they ended up in the New World, which we know today as the Americas. So according to this, history and artifacts and customs that they were doing years ago, the peoples that was on the Americas or in the Americas prior to the Europeans arriving, according to the Bible, these were the bulk of the 10 tribes of Israel. Let's keep going.
Ephraim, he hath mixed himself among the people. Ephraim is a cake not turned. Strangers have devoured his strength, and he knoweth it not. Yea, grey hairs are here and there upon him, yet he knoweth not. And the pride of Israel testifieth to his face. And they do not return to the Lord their God, nor seek him for all this. Mine heritage is unto me as a speckled bird. The birds round about are against her. Come ye, assemble all the beasts of the field. Come to devour.
Okay, and here we can see that Ephraim, the 10 tribes, the Most High is saying that they then intermingled amongst the other nations. And he's stating here, where it's got my heritage is unto me as a speckled bird, referring that although the Israelites may have looked all similar in hue color, skin color, eventually, because they've mixed themselves amongst the other peoples, some of them, their appearance would look not always or slightly different to the original, what we'd call black people or Negroes today. Okay? Quite that simple. Let's move on.
And it came to pass in the 25 year of Jeconiah, king of Judah, that the word of the Lord came to Baruch, the son of Neriah, and said to him, Have you seen all that this people are doing to me? That the evils which these 2 tribes which remained have done are greater than those of the 10 tribes which were carried away captive. For the former tribes were forced by their kings to commit sin, but these 2 of themselves have been forcing and compelling their kings to commit sin. For this reason, behold, I bring evil upon this city and upon its inhabitants, and it shall be removed from before me for a time, and I will scatter this people among the Gentiles, that they may do good to the Gentiles. And my people shall be chastened, and the time shall come when they will seek for the prosperity of their times.
Okay, although this is obviously self-explanatory, Most High is simply saying that after the 10 tribes, the northern kingdom, were carried away captive as slaves to the Americas, mostly, not all of them, but mostly, the last 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, the southern kingdom, also known as Judah, because that was the larger tribe of the 2, with parts of Levi within the southern kingdom, the priests, and parts of Levi within the northern kingdom, the one that was taken away already. And he's simply saying that the last 2 tribes, also known as Judah, did worse than the 10 tribes, so they got kicked out the land as well and got scattered amongst the Gentiles, which we shall now see. So it looks like so far the tribes of Israel, all 12 of them, didn't listen in the land and follow the Most High's commandments, and eventually they all got dispersed out into the world to live amongst the Gentiles until the latter days.
Judah is gone into captivity because of affliction and because of great servitude. She dwelleth among the heathen. She findeth no rest. All her persecutors overtook her between the straits. For it is evident that our Lord sprang out of Judah, of which tribe Moses spake nothing concerning priesthood.
So here again we can see in the book of Lamentations that the tribe of Judah and Benjamin, but as mentioned before, the southern kingdom got kicked out of the land, and they also went into captivity as prophesied, and are now living amongst the Gentile nations, being oppressed. And it also says here that the Messiah, the one that the world calls Jesus today, also came from the tribe of Judah, who again was one of the 10 brothers that went down into the land of Egypt to buy corn. Also, the Most High said for Mary and Joseph to go hide with their son who is to be born, which is the Messiah, who people call Jesus, hide in Egypt amongst the Hamites until Herod was dead. Okay? Food for thought. Let's move on.
Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they carried away captive the whole captivity, to deliver them up to Edom. But I will send a fire on the wall of Gaza, which shall devour the palaces thereof. And I will cut off the inhabitant from Ashdod, and him that holdeth the scepter from Ashkelon. And I will turn mine hand against Ekron, and the remnant of the Philistines shall perish, saith the Lord God. Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Tyrus, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they delivered up the whole captivity to Edom, and remembered not the brotherly covenant. But I will send a fire on the wall of Tyrus, which shall devour the palaces thereof.
Okay, brothers and sisters, so we can see these prophecies being played out here now in the book of Amos, and we can see that the people of Gaza, who are the Arabs, and the people of Tyrus. Now Tyrus and Zidon were parts of the ancient city of Canaan. Remember now, Canaan was a son of Ham on the continent of what we call today Africa. So the Most High is saying he's not going to turn his punishment away from Gaza, the Arabs, or Tyrus, some of the what we would call today the African peoples, because in Tyrus's example, he remembered not the brotherly covenant which Hiram had with King David and Solomon in their times. Then after their times, Tyrus as a people then eventually turned on the Israelites and started to sell them. So what we have here is that, same as Psalms 83, the other nations are coming together against the Israelites to destroy them from being a nation. Let's move on.
Thus saith the Lord, for 3 transgressions of Edom, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because he did pursue his brother with the sword, and did cast off all pity, and his anger did tear perpetually, and he kept his wrath forever. But I will send a fire upon Teman, which shall devour the palaces of Bozrah.
Now here we see that the Most High is also not going to turn his punishment away from Edom, the Edomites, who we call the Caucasian people and their descendants today. Why? Because it says clearly here, they didn't stop and they pursued the Israelites all the way to the end. Even to this day, and presumably all the way to the end, they're not going to stop. I'm not saying all of them, but within their nation, this is what's prophesied, as we can see here. The thing is, when we finished slavery, it was supposed to end there. But this is what it says in Zechariah 1:15. The Most High says, I am very sore displeased. He's upset with the heathen, the Gentiles that are at ease because they're living okay now. Why? For I was but a little displeased, and they helped forward the affliction. What does he mean, forward the affliction? In how we talk today, when slavery finished, they came up with stuff such as what we know today as racism, and that carried on with their laws and their attitudes towards the Israelites all over the earth. They are forward the affliction. They haven't told people who we are. They're hiding it. So this is kind of what we're going through, because the majority of earth don't even know who we really are. So they're taking us as what they've been told. They've forwarded our affliction. So the Most High is very upset. He was a little bit, he said, but he says, I am very sore displeased with the heathen that are at ease. All right, so let's move on.
Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas, and Simeon that was called Niga, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manan, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul,
Okay, brothers and sisters. Now, what we can see in the early church, at the first church back then, in the time when the Romans were ruling and the disciples were coming together, Barnabas and Simeon, who are Israelites, same as the rest of their people that we've been going through all the way, they were the prophets and teachers. And back then, it's saying that they were referred to as niggers, what we call today black people, black men. Okay?
And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Canst thou speak Greek? Art not thou that Egyptian, which before these days madest an uproar, and leddest out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers? But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, a citizen of no mean city. And, I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people.
Okay, so here we have Paul in the book of Acts. Paul, who the Catholic and Christian Church based their whole religion on. Paul, who is an Israelite, the same as Barnabas and Simeon, the teachers in the church in Antioch, who were called nigger. Paul, the same as the rest of his people. David and Solomon. Joseph in Egypt, the 10 brothers that went down to Egypt. Joseph and Mary and the Messiah, the Most High asked and instructed them to go into and hide amongst the Egyptians who are Hamites. Paul is being led into the castle, and because he's an affluent Israelite in his time, the Romans who are ruling are asking him, can he speak Greek? They thought, just like the woman at the well with Moses, they thought Paul was an Egyptian. And he's also got here that he is a Jew, meaning that he's from the southern kingdom, Judah and Benjamin. He's from the southern kingdom. So he's saying here he's a Jew. What color were the real Jews who were Israelites?
Are they Hebrews? So am I. Are they Israelites? So am I. Are they the seed of Abraham? So am I. Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool. I am more, in labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequent, in deaths oft.
And just in case the scriptures before wasn't clear enough, Paul again is here telling you that he's the same as his people. He's no different. He too is an Israelite. What people would call today a Negro, a black man.
I say then, hath God cast away his people? God forbid. For I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. God hath not cast away his people which he foreknew. Even so then, at this present time also there is a remnant according to the election of grace.
So although, brothers and sisters, the question and the answer are clearly here for us to see, the question still remains in our world today. Because we're being told in different ways that we're Gentiles. And the Most High has just forgotten about us and made new covenants with the religion or religions that we see today. But is this true? According to this, it's not. It's asking, has the Most High forgotten about his people? Because they fell off and they sinned and they didn't keep the laws that were given to Moses, it was prophesied that they would obviously go into captivity, as we can see. Slavery amongst all the nations has become the tale. But does that mean, as we are being told directly and indirectly, that he's forgot about these people? Well, obviously we can see down here the answer is no. And in the end of this prophecy and this story, how this goes is that there's going to be a remnant of the descendants of those same people around the world that are going to come to their senses and come back to the Most High and the covenant that he made through Moses with them and their ancestors, should I say. and those will be saved through the election of grace. That's what he's saying. He hasn't changed his mind and forgotten about them, and he's, like I said before, made covenant with the Christian churches all over the earth, and you could say the Muslims as well. I mean, and whoever else out there. I mean, yeah, it's not so, and I don't read that. Anyway, let's move on.
Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. Their Redeemer is strong. The Lord of hosts is his name. He shall throughly plead their cause, that he may give rest to the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon.
Okay, here's another one. This is saying that the children of Israel, the 10 tribes, and the children of Judah, the 2 tribes, so Israel, the northern kingdom, and Judah, the southern kingdom, were oppressed together. Now, some people will say that Israel, the 10 tribes, are across the continent of Africa only. I'm not saying that some of them aren't wherever nowadays, because people move around, but ask yourself this: where were the 10 tribes and the 2 tribes, the children of Israel and the children of Judah, who are the Negroes that we know today, where were they oppressed together? And this is saying, it mentions Babylon. Babylon today, as we know, are the Western nations. This isn't the Babylon before with King Nebuchadnezzar. No, this is the end time Babylon, which is the Western nations. Because we know the Israelites were taken all around the world. We know that. And even today, people move around and all stuff like that. But this is saying Babylon. And where in particular in Babylon is it talking about? The Americas. That's what this is talking about. And where it's got Babylon, sometimes, like the Most High will say Israel, and he will mean all of the 12 tribes together. We will say Israel, and he means just the 10 tribes, as you can see here. But sometimes when he says Babylon, the Nebuchadnezzar Babylon, sometimes if he says Babylon, it can mean the end times Babylon, which is the Western nations. Sometimes when he says Babylon, he could be referring to the Roman Catholic Church, the spiritual side. Or sometimes when he says Babylon, he's referring to the daughter of Babylon, which is America itself, the United States of America. Right.
Therefore, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, which brought up, and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, and from all countries whither I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land.
Okay, we can see here again, brothers and sisters, in the book of Jeremiah, it's got here that the Most High will, like he did before in Egypt, he's going to gather the house of Israel from around the world and gather them and take them back to their own land, not to heaven, to their own land. And we can also see that the house of Israel are in the North country. This isn't talking about North Africa or even further like Russia in the north. He's not talking about that. He's talking about North America, the United States of America, because that's where a bulk of the Israelites are today, right?
In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out of the land of the north, to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers.
Again, he says here again, at the end of all of this, the house of Judah, the southern kingdom, what we call Negroes today, and the house of Israel, who, as I said before, were the indigenous people of the Americas. I'm not trying to say that the rest of the Israelites the house of Judah and Israel aren't scattered amongst other nations, because I too am, and I'm not over there. I'm not saying that, but he's emphasizing right here, because the prophecies, a lot of them are emphasizing on the daughter of Babylon, who today we would say or call America, the United States, the last superpower, the end of Rome, Egypt the second, spiritual Sodom in Egypt. Do you know what I mean? Rome 2.0. You know what I mean? Babylon. He has got a target on that particular nation. That's why he emphasizes a lot. So here it says, in those days, the house of Judah and the house of Israel shall come together out of the land of the north. Is this talking about Africa again? Or is this talking about the Americas? Ask yourself that.
Then I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like the beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning, and his eyes as lamps of fire, and his arms and his feet like in color to polished brass, and the voice of his words like the voice of a multitude.
Okay, here we see Daniel. Daniel sees a vision of the Messiah, the same one that we've been talking about, the Israelite, that was with Joseph and Mary, when the Most High said, hide my son in Egypt amongst the Egyptians, the Hamites, until Herod is dead. The same one that's the same like the rest of his people. Daniel here sees a vision of him, and his feet and his arms are like polished brass, which is dark. I've seen some comments sometimes where people try to skid and slip out of this because they don't accept exactly what it's saying, even though it goes along with the rest of what we've just gone through. And they will say that polished brass means that it's a glowing bronze, or they try to change the word brass in some of the translations, apart from the King James version. They try to change it in some of the other versions and try to not make out that he's simply talking about he's a dark skin colored, copper colored, black, what we call a Negro, a black man. It's ridiculous. Let's move on.
His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters.
Same as the scripture before, that what Daniel saw, but as the Bible says, 2 or more witnesses are needed for a matter. Here's John. Not Daniel, here's John in the last book. And John also sees a vision of the Messiah, the one the world called Jesus, Yeshua. And here he sees his head too. His head and his hairs were like white wool, woolly. There's only one people on the earth that have or are referred to as having woolly hair. His eyes here are red, and he also sees his feet. And he says too that his feet are like brass, but not just brass, it's burnt brass. Again, I've seen people try to say burnt, that means it's like glowing bronze. No, it says burnt in a furnace. Again, it's ridiculous. People are trying to slip and slide out because they don't accept that he too is an Israelite, remember? Like the rest of the Israelites, like the brothers that, remember in the beginning, went down to Egypt to buy corn. And Joseph was living amongst the Egyptians, remember? And they didn't recognize Joseph because he looked like the rest of the Egyptians. Remember Moses and Paul got mistaken for Egyptians. Hamites, black people. Let's move on.
Philip saith unto him, Lord, show us the Father, and it sufficeth us. Jesus saith unto him, Have I been so long time with you, and yet hast thou not known me, Philip? He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. And how sayest thou then, Show us the Father?
So, brothers and sisters, at this point in the lesson, we can kind of start answering the question of the original title of this lesson. What color is God? Jesus, or the one they call Jesus, the Messiah, and his people. And just letting the Bible speak it for itself and let the people of the Bible speak for themselves, the answers we got so far are in reverse. So we know roughly, or we should know by now, through the Spirit, who his people are and what they should look like today, roughly. I know that the Israelites were scattered amongst other nations, so over time there are Israelites today that will look and reflect and look just like the other nations, just like he says, my people, some of them are unto me as a speckled bird. I get that, I understand that. There's Israelites in the end of this that will believe, and their descendants will go back to these same tribes we've been talking about, but on the outside appearance they're going to look like other people too. I know that. I know that over all these years, centuries, I get that. But that's where he said he's going to have to come and separate the sheep from the goats. Because he's going to know that, not us. We can only go by the Spirit right now and preach and teach. And wherever it lands, that's where it lands, Like when he done that parable and the sower goes out to sow the seeds, and some landed on stony ground and all the rest of it, So at this point, the disciples are asking him, so what does the Father look like? So we know that the Israelites, what they look like, they're people of color. The Messiah was the same as his people. When he came and walked the earth, the Word became flesh, and he looked like his people. And here the disciples are saying, so show us the Father. And he's saying, hang on a minute, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, who are from the same spiritual family, and one is a reflection of the other. Okay?
After this I looked, and, behold, a door was opened in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was, as it were, of a trumpet talking with me, which said, Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter. And immediately I was in the Spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne. And he that sat was to look upon like a jasper and a sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight, like unto an emerald.
Okay, brothers and sisters, now here we have John in the book of Revelation, and John, who is also an Israelite like the rest of his people, is also what people would say is a brown or Negro looking man. And here he gets taken up in a vision and he sees the Most High sitting down on a throne. So the Most High isn't just a wispy spirit, whatever, even though he can be what he wants to be, but here he has a body, obviously like a humanoid body, because he's sitting down on a throne, on a chair, on a throne. And when John sees him, he says that he looks over and he sees him, and he looks, and his appearance is as a jasper and a sardine stone. Now here's a picture of a jasper and sardine stones. And what color are they? They look kind of ruddy, right? Brown.
I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened.
Okay, here again, we see the Ancient of Days. In this scripture, the Ancient of Days he's talking about is the Messiah. Why? Because all judgment has been given to the Son. So where it says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, these are these leaders and their rulerships, the rulership of men. He beheld until the thrones were cast down, that their rulership was ended, and the Ancient of Days did sit. This is the Messiah. It's got here again. His garment was white as snow, and the hair on his head like the pure wool. It doesn't even say white like wool right now. It says the hair of his head like the pure wool. There's only one people that have woolly hair. Come on, man. And it's got here that the judgment was set and the books were open. So he's going to start judging the nations at this time.
And there I saw one who had a head of days, and his head was white like wool, and with him was another being whose countenance had the appearance of a man, and his face was full of graciousness, like one of the holy angels. And I asked the angel who went with me and showed me all the hidden things concerning that Son of Man, who he was, and whence he was, and why he went with the head of days.
And if that wasn't enough, here again, in the book of Enoch, some people try to say or don't want to read from the book of Enoch. To be honest, that's up to them. But, hey, it's mentioned in the Bible in the book of Jude, so I'm going to read from it. And it's got here that this here is saying, and it's talking about the Father and the Son. And again, it's got here, and there I saw one who had a head of days. That's talking about the Father. And his head was white like wool. These guys got woolly afros, man. And with him was another being. This is the Messiah, whose countenance had the appearance of a man. And when you scroll down, it says, he's the Son of Man. Right? Remember in the Bible, the Son of Man?
And he answered and said unto me, This is the Son of Man who hath righteousness, with whom dwelleth righteousness, and who revealeth all the treasures of that which is hidden, because the Lord of spirits hath chosen him, and whose lot hath the preeminence before the Lord of spirits in uprightness forever.
Again, how do we know that that's the Son of Man, that's the Messiah? Because it's got here, the Lord of spirits have chosen him. The Father has chosen the Son. Right?
Question: if Jesus' hair was like this, skin looked like this, is from here, then who on earth is this guy? Oh, by the way, for the record, we all know olives only come in 2 colors. So even if his skin tone was so-called olive in color, this could obviously only be referring to him as being a so-called black man or Negro. As we obviously know, no one has green skin. A system of deception, built on lies. Wake up.
So let's start to wind this down now, brothers and sisters, and look at what we should have hopefully learned through this lesson. The final conclusion on the matter: the real biblical Israelites, Israel, are still dispersed and oppressed. They're still the tail, the least amongst the Gentile nations, and definitely not the head. They're still in captivity, slavery, awaiting to be redeemed and regathered back to the biblical land and borders of ancient Israel by the Messiah, Christ himself, when he returns to start his rulership. So there we have it, brothers and sisters. So thanks for watching. All praises to the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Shalom, and peace be with you until next time. Bless.
Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. By this we know that we love the children of God, when we love God and keep his commandments. For this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments. And his commandments are not grievous. And hereby we do know that we know him, if we keep his commandments. He that saith, I know him, and keepeth not his commandments, is a liar, and the truth is not in him. But whoso keepeth his word, in him verily is the love of God perfected. Hereby know we that we are in him. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city.